Basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skitty, and Malley for the Insight NBA show.
G'day everyone, we're here for a good time, not a long time, because we're here about master ads. I'm Matty G, and this is Malley. How are you, mate?
Hey, mate, we always do our best work in a short period of time. Us Matties, we're not going to muck around. We're in and out.
That's exactly what our respective partners have said, and it's given us both a couple of kids each. Mate, look, it is week 6. I know that you were sad. It is in the books now. Quarter of the fantasy season is over. RIP. We're still looking to make moves. If you're like me, and I just want to show it because I know that we talk a good game. There is no matter what analyst you are, Malley, you just can't predict things like injuries, for example. You just can't.
Yeah, and I've seen some teams, and my heart goes out to them who just are riddled with injuries, and some of them are still pulling wins. And when I look deeper, they're pulling wins against other teams who are also fairly screwed over in the old health department. So yes, I've been, touch wood, fairly lucky this season in fantasy basketball. But yes, my heart goes out to those who haven't.
I'll touch your wood for you on that one, mate. I've looking through one of my teams now in the 20-man league, for example, that I'm in. I've had Bradley Beal out the last week. I picked up Mark Williams. We spoke about that. And I took the L last week to get him back. I've slipped to a horrible record in that league because I've been decimated by injuries. Ayton was out all of last week. Emmanuel Quickly has been out. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 starting spots in a 10-man league. And in that one, it's either you got to have a streaming spot or you just got to ride the wave. And this is what this whole story and this whole show is about. How do we find guys that we can pick up on the waiver wire, add them into our rosters, get a bit of a short burn and or a bit of a long burn, Malley, as we've said, some heroes. We do have a couple of questions, viewer Q&As that we've had out there. Shout out to M. Bradley 741. This isn't the one from the 740 M. Bradley. He was in a 12-team, Malley, head-to-head 8-cat league. Would you rather have Miles Bridges, Cam Johnson, MPJ, or RJ Barrett? What are your thoughts on those guys?
I feel like RJ Barrett's stocks are going to go down as pieces come back, and that's going to affect him. But I like him, but I just don't like him on that list. Michael Porter Jr., he does weird things. Like some nights his free throws are just like absolutely awful, and like I don't know, he's consistent, but he's also consistently inconsistent. I know that's kind of an oxymoron there, but I'm not a big fan of what he does. I really quite like Miles Bridges. I feel like he's going to get some good burn, especially because he's a bigger body on a team that's losing bigger bodies. And when he came back after his absence, which was shorter than probably what it should have been, he put together a couple of really nice games before he tweaked his ankle or his foot or something. It doesn't seem like it's a long-term thing.
Could be out a couple of games.
Who was the other? Cam Johnson.
Cam Johnson, who's been just absolutely rolling this year. In fact, in the last week, I believe, again, I think he was ridiculously high. Yeah, again, he was top 50 again on the season. He has continued to roll. I'll find this out in the past week to give you his value. In Brooklyn, he is the number 1 ranked Brooklyn Nets player. He was the 11th ranked player. So, yeah, he's moved in now all the way. And this was a guy, Malley, that on this show, when we talked about early guys, we were saying this was going to be a big bounce back year for Cam Johnson. Do we expect him to be the 11th player? No, but we've covered him now in our Sell High show twice, which means it's definitely a guy now who's going to be consistent, but you can not just get a flash in the pan return for.
So give me Miles Bridges or give me Cam Johnson out of that list. Maybe Cam seems to be doing the things. He's doing a Jordan Poole where we hoped big things from last year and he couldn't produce, and then this year he's doing amazingly. So yeah, probably put him at the top of the list.
And I've done the same thing. So back to mate, I've got Cam number one with the bullet for me. I've gone there Miles Bridges or MPJ. That's the next round, but RJ Barrett slips very much down to the last one. And our last question here is: would you consider dropping Nick Claxton for TJ McConnell? This is from Cool Age Trippin 9118. The digits that come with these YouTube numbers sometimes are ridiculous. Option to hold. Option is to drop Kawhi, or should I just hold? We know that Kawhi is starting to ramp up his activities, so we hold on Kawhi for all those who have the stock. I would be holding Claxton. I'd be just dropping your worst player at this point and streaming in TJ McConnell, because we're going to get to TJ McConnell tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I'd drop Claxton. Even today, I've got Claxton in one of my leagues, and he's still just managing to do enough. I'd like him to shoot a little bit more and less line, which I want him to shoot a lot less because he's looking awful. But he's had back trouble. Like, I kind of feel like this is the low point for him, and things are only going to get better. And there's too many bodies. There's 3 guys who are going to come back in Indiana who are all going to put the squeeze on TJ. So it's pretty obvious for me.
And we're going to cover a lot of the
league ends. Unless your league ends at the end of this week, I'll be going Claxton.
Yeah, I'd be going Clacko as well. So hold on to it for the long term. This is it. We're going to get down to it. This is our, not our must-have, but this is our, I guess, our waiver target show. And guys, we want to pick up, so let's get to it.
Target acquired.
Malley, we did it differently this week. You've taken 10, I've taken 10, and we've taken a split down the middle, 5 guys who we could just reckon we could ride the waivers. We're also going to discuss at the end of the show the schedule for this week. It's a 6-gamer, but let's get to your boys. First of all, take us through your list one by one, starting with, we'll go through the top 5 here. We've got Jake LaRavia, DeAndre Hunter, Josh Green, Malik Beasley, and Isaiah Stewart. As you can see on the screen, for those who haven't watched this show or heard this show before, we talk ownership across Yahoo, ESPN, and Fantrax. So the first number is indicative of the value of Yahoo, second is ESPN, and third is Fantrax. So LaRavia, over half owned, 56% Fantrax, but only 10 and 9 in Yahoo and ESPN, respectively. Malley, you're liking what you're seeing for him in Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, the commonality between all the guys besides one, I'll figure out who that is I think a little harder. The commonality that ties them all together this week is they're all 4-game guys. So they're guys you can pick up and you're going to get good value after. There are also guys that are going to be there on the days that you need them, and there on the days that you don't need them, because it's only a 5-day week and there's some big days. So I've got a couple of Detroit guys on there. I'm really liking what Stewart is doing at the moment, Big Beef. The 5 blocks that he put up the other day, that's kind of not really him, but I'm loving seeing him back in the center position. Like, his percentages are awesome. He's like a 500, 800 guy, respectively, which is great, because he's just not taking – he chucked a 3 in the last game and it was awful, and I think he kind of tucked his head back in his shell again. So I think those two, him and Malik Beasley as well, it'll be interesting to see what happens now that Thompson comes back. He'll be playing the next game, but I still think, they're kind of exact polar opposites of each other. You're not going to, as far as Detroit goes, they're not going to really challenge each other for role. They might challenge each other for minutes, because there's only a certain amount of minutes to go around. But Malik Beasley's been on fire with his shot. And maybe they can play him out there a little bit with Thompson, who can cover up his shortcomings as a defender. So there are 2 guys that I'm really into for this week, and they're going to get 4 games.
And they both played 3 games last week, which actually upped them in the rankings overall. This actually took them up to the 2 highest ranked Detroit Pistons players after the course of the week, 66 for Isaiah Stewart and 77 for Malik Beasley, respectively. Malik Beasley was also a player we covered in last week's show. Now, his percentages, we took record of this, was 29 and 48 last week. And if we look this week, he has cracked up to 34%. He is at 20%, so an 11% ownership increase in ESPN and another 20% ownership in Fantrax. So the word is out to pick up Malik Beasley, and with a 4-game week, an absolute must-have for all those. But man, when we see guys like this who are really performing well, Like he's averaging 18 points a game. He's doing 32 minutes. He's got 4 threes a game, 3.7 rebounds, 2.3 steals in the last week, 435. But he's also, I mean, he's hit all of his free throws, but he doesn't get there much. But it's a nice ad for him. But just slotting in between those two guys in Laravia, as you said, they've all got 4 games. The biggest guy here owned on percentage in Fantrax is DeAndre Hunter. He's owned 34% and 23% as of today in Yahoo and ESPN. He's been playing really well in Atlanta this season when he's had the run after those injuries.
I don't know if he's going to take the starting spot back, and the games he hasn't been playing have been ones without Bogdanovic. So because they're guys who are going to come off the bench and kind of do the same thing. Obviously, one's a bigger body, but one's probably arguably a better shooter in Bogdanovic. It'd be interesting to see who gets the run, but they have opportunity at the moment. Atlanta are starting to come around a little bit, which is nice to see too. Somewhat at the expense of Trae Young, who I want to see get back to good form as a Trae Young owner. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess you've got, and when we're looking long term, you've got a guy in, I think, Laravia, who is just sitting where he's going to sit. I think they're going to find minutes for him. He was down in the last game, which I think I know that I saw him get dropped by 3 different people in 3 of the 4 leagues I'm in. And I was like, oh, dude's got an injury. And then I went, no, he just had a bad game and he shot poorly and he didn't get many minutes. But I like him. I know that they've got Jar coming back, which is going to hurt everybody because he just does a bit of everything. But yeah, I know with the news of what's his name, Junior. No.
Oh, Vince Williams Jr.
Williams. Yeah. Thank you. I nearly got there by myself. That would have been a new record for me.
It would have.
With him being injured long term, I think that's good for Laravia. But I kind of think he sits. His stocks kind of have settled, where you see Hunter, who's going down just because everybody's coming back healthy and it's putting the squares on him, and it looks like he might have lost the starting position. And then you've got who was my third guy? Flick that screen back up again.
That's Joshy Green. So I actually want to touch on. Yeah, I want to touch on a few Charlotte guys, because I know we've got 25 guys on this, but we're going to probably bump it up to 30. But Josh Green is one of your Charlotte Hornets guys with really low ownership. 3% Yahoo, 0.6% ownership in ESPN. Shameful. And yeah, shameful. And that's gone up, by the way, 0.2%. So he was barely owned. He's not even a full percentage point there, basically. I've got to round him up, the old decimals, and 23% in Fantrax there to get Josh Green some ownership. But when you see 23% in Fantrax, we've spoken about this before, a lot of dedicated users, really hardcore hoop heads. You see that and you see 0.6. There's something missing in ESPN leagues there. It's fairly glaring, isn't it? But I think, as I said, Laravia settling, Hunter slowly falling, and then you've got Green, who currently is on the rise because there's just minutes that need filling with 3 big guys out. And Miles Bridges has missed a couple of games now. It looks like he'll be back soon, but they seem to be leaning on him. And this is one of the other guys I'll talk about. I want to touch on that because I did mention Charlotte guys, and I'll come to the rest of my guys. One of those guys, like you mentioned, is Nick Richards. There's a couple of big men out with no Grant Williams, like we mentioned, is out for the year now. Nick Richards has already started to shoot back up in ownership. I think that's because historically, Malley, that Nick Richards comes back before Mark Williams, but they're both on the exact same injury report. Like both are traveling. Like it's almost like the guy or girl who writes the injury reports for the Hornets just copy and pasted it for Williams and Richards. Resume team activities, resume contact, playing the same, traveling. Like they're doing all of the same stuff. So it's a matter of now of which one do we see on the court first? And it's probably Richards, I think, with the absence of Grant Williams. But this is another couple of guys that are going to add there. One of my other guys, I'll put on Moussa Diabate. He was one of the guys who I've cut from my list at the last minute today, Moussa Diabate. He is one of the guys we're going to look right there. He's actually on our waiver wires guy. So he's gone down in ownership because he had a stinker last game despite the huge amount of rebounds for Moussa in the last one. He has gone down to 15, 4, and 40%. We've also got guys who are there like Saloon and Cody Martin. Cody Martin's been the 62nd ranked player in fantasy in the past week in Charlotte. So he's getting some more burn along like your boy like Josh Green and also Salon, who's getting some burn right now. He was the 158th player. So in deeper leagues, we can kind of keep our eyes on a few Charlotte Hornets guys, mate.
I mean, Moose is really a specialist, isn't he? He doesn't score a lot. His defensive numbers are okay, but he's good for a minimum, especially with the minutes he's going to get at the moment, for a minimum of 10 rebounds. And there's not many leagues where that can't be seen as being valuable. So he's great for that. Watching him's awesome. Like, he just pulls so many offensive rebounds down, and then he spits them back out to ball. Ball shoots and misses. He grabs it again. Ball shoots and misses. Just happens like until LaMelo can sink one, which is inevitably happens. But yeah, no, I like him. I think he's my favorite on that list there, just because we know what he's going to do, we know what he's not going to do, and we know that the minutes are there at least. He's
like a Bismack Biyombo light.
Yes,
that kind of offensive rebound specialist, kick it back out, does what he needs to do. His field goal percentage was horrible, and that actually has probably led him to actually being dropped in so many leagues. Oh, he didn't score. Oh, he stuffed me. But you don't look at what else he brings to the party. A guy that I spoke about, another specialist last week, who I thought was flying. I had him on my radar. I put him on my list in the show last week. So when you sent me your guys, I was absolutely delighted to see him on yours. Otherwise, he was going to make mine again. His averages ownership was 14%, 7%, and 52% in Fantrax last week. We're talking about one Toumani Camara. And this is the interesting thing. He's only gone up 3% in Yahoo, 1% in ESPN, but a 5% rise, and he's had even a better week this week. I know he's the name there in the middle, but Camara has been an absolute weapon in Portland, mate. He's made your list. This guy just playing out of his socks and getting minutes and bringing it to you across the board, mate.
And he's another guy, you know, he's somewhat of a specialist because he's always getting those steals, but he gives you a little bit of something different each game. And with the comings of goings of players in Portland, he seems to be holding that starting roll down pretty well. Like, you know, no one's really challenged him. And I feel like as soon as someone comes back, someone else goes out. So it'll be interesting to see long term, but we're not really, as a waiver pickups, at least for the guys we're looking at right now, we're not as worried about that. We just want to get through the week. We want to pick guys up that are available now, because that's an ever-changing beast that we've kind of got to just wrangle each week. Hence the reason why we do this show weekly, not annually.
Exactly. Another one of his teammates has made your list for this week as well. Delano Banton, 10%, 4%, and 45% owned respectively. A couple of guys in Portland, like you said, getting some value. At the top of your list, you've got Quentin Grimes as well. Why is Quentin Grimes in Dallas getting your attention right now this week?
Only because Luke is out. I think he had a bit of a dud today, which is a shame, but he came out really hot the game before. Must have been yesterday's game. And he scored like the first 10 points for them. So we know that when he gets hot, he can play. And they're giving the minutes to him over Hardy, because I think we were questioning that 2 games ago when we knew Luka was out for a week or so. And we were like, well, it's going to be one of these guys. And it's clearly been, it clearly hasn't been Hardy. He's still sitting on the teens as far as minutes go. So, I lost interest in him. And Delano Banton's the other one there. He's a guy who can do absolutely nothing, or he can absolutely kill it, because he's
40 points.
He's like a mini Kevin Durant, just in the shape of him. He's kind of got that Kevin Durant, Brandon Ingram type, like skeletal, long, can handle the ball, can rebound, can shoot, not well. That's definitely what sets him apart from the other two. But They seem to be giving him some burn after the start of the season where he was getting nothing. Again, opportunities, just the fates have smiled on him at the moment. So, he's getting a run, and that's why we can take advantage of it.
Especially with I guess you could say the small ball 5. Klingon went out, came back to the court, but now he's out for the next game. Aiton's expected back, but if they don't, they're probably Robert Williams will continue to roll out there, but we know that we're not going to see a full game out of him. So they do run a lot of long, small ball with Anthony Simons out there, Shaden Sharp, Toumani Camara, Delano Banton, and they're even ringing out Chris, what's his name? Chris, I have a better brother Murray. There you go. Chris Murray out there at times. Over there, they're giving him some opportunity in there. But Amir Coffey, he's another one of these guys where you said, opportunity just keeps popping up and giving guys a little bit of run in fantasy. Amir Coffey in the Clippers is steadily put together a nice little run now. He is 6% owned in Yahoo, 2% in ESPN, and 22% in Fantrax. Leave Malley, he's getting your attention a little bit as a target this week as well.
Yeah, and he doesn't blow up or do anything exciting, but he's definitely the most consistent guy over the last few pages. We know what his minutes are going to be, especially at the moment. With his starting lineup, shot at things, I guess he's getting now. We know that he's good for 15 points. He might get a couple of rebounds. He might get a couple of assists. His percentages are both nice. And there's definitely value in that, especially if it's someone you're planning to hold over the course of the 4 games that you're going to get him for, if you can pick him up tonight and have him on your lineup ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, in the last week, been averaging 12.8 points, 2.3 rebounds, 2.5 threes, 3.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists. But he's doing it on 500 from the field in the past week, which is a great percentages, which isn't going to hurt you for a waiver guy who you want to come in and get you some points and get you some threes. It's not going to cook you at like a 380 percentage, which buoys you just a little bit, and at 833 from the free throw line. So he's a really nice grab as well. And Jonathan Isaac, he has been, if he continues to get the minutes that he did the other night, and this was really interesting, he has just popped up a little bit. This is all a matter of minutes, and he's been averaging 20.6 minutes. He did have a nice bump the other night, which is, I don't think you want, but if he's going to play 23 to 25 minutes a night, this is the guy you want. And the course of the past week, he's only averaging 5 points a game, but the 6 rebounds, the 2.5 blocks, but the percentages really hurt for him last week. But you never know what Jonathan Isaac you're going to get, because a few games ago, he looked like just young Russell, like Bill Russell out there on the court, just everywhere.
Yeah. And he got 12 rebounds in one game, which was a little confusing, but you'll take it. But again, a guy that you know is going to, with all shots, going to get 2 steals and 2 blocks, and there's huge value in that.
Yeah, 100%. I've got kind of similar guys in my ones about like value when you're going to get my first 5 guys. Malley, I've split it into 2 different sections here. I've got one who's just guys who I'm liking, who I think are good ads, both for this week and long term. Now, you did touch on the 4-game week guys earlier on, so let's break those down as well. In the Hawks, the Nets, the Hornets, the Mavs, the Pistons, the Pacers, the Clippers, like you said, guys like Coffey and Kevin Porter Jr., who's going to be a little bit later on in our list. The Lakers, fringe guys like Rui Hachimura, even Cam Reddish. There's a couple more names for you. In the Grizzlies, you already mentioned, I'll make Jake LaRavia. In that situation for them, we've got other guys who flirt around the edges in deeper leagues of our 4-game week. We've got guys there like, Santi Aldama, Jalen Wells, who's made my list later on, Scottie Pippen Jr., still not owned in a lot of leagues. I picked him up in one today. And old mate Luke Kennard as a stream option in there, as well as guys from the Miami Heat and the New Orleans Pelicans, which is interesting. One of my other Pelicans guys who's gone down in ownership, funnily enough, and this was one I wanted to flag with you, Malley, CJ McCollum ownership across leagues has gone down in a few. It's like people have just had enough a week out from him returning. He looks set to come back early this week. And CJ could just be sitting there on your waiver wire. So make sure if you haven't put a waiver claim in for him yet, do that, because he's going to get the burn, especially with DeJounte Murray out, Zion out. CJ is going to return an absolute truckload of value, which brings me back to guys like this. I've loved Ty Jerome. He made the list of mine last week. He continues to be great. Last week, he was 7% owned, 6% owned, and 37% owned. So you can see that he has jumped this week, 12% ownership, 9% ownership, and that is 11% ownership over on Fantrax. He had an absolute Malley. He had a sublime game today for Cleveland, didn't he? Like when it was like, when you're seeing like the NBA app updates and it's just flashing stuff out like Donovan Mitchell and Ty Jerome lighting up, and Garland's had another average game, but not the great. But Ty Jerome goes for 26 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, a block shot on 500 from deep. This is, and then you look at his lines. The man's been insane the last few weeks.
Definitely. He's definitely a pickup if other people haven't already grabbed him, especially because when I was watching the Cleveland game today, Garland on the offensive end tweaked his ankle and he looked a bit gingerly for a little minute there. So he kept playing. But I can only imagine that's going to get him sat out, and that just is even better for Ty Jerome, who we know they like to put in the starting lineup, especially when one of those guards goes out. So, all power to him.
Yeah, I think he's been playing incredibly well, and he's definitely a guy that you want to own. I'm in a lot of leagues, and he's only not added in a couple, and I've literally put in a claim in one league. I think I threw, it's like you've got to just throw money at it. Now, he's just shooting, he's over 500 from three, not sustainable. Like I think he was plus 550, 600 when I last looked from his field goal percentage, not sustainable. But the guy is doing really well. We know that Strus is coming back this week, most likely. We know that Karis LeVert is coming back. These are wings that they need. So he's kind of like necessity is the mother of invention. And he is a spark plug off there. How long that can go for, not entirely sure, but we can definitely ride the Ty Jerome wave while it happens. Another similar guy like this is TJ McConnell, another great guy off the bench for Indiana. This is in the presence of, as you said, Nembhard and Naismith being out. He's always a solid ad. He's 23% Yahoo, 14% in ESPN, and 56% ownership in Fantrax. Chris Boucher and Donovan Clingan, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. These are three centers I want to bring your attention to. Now, Boucher has been playing very well. Kelly Olynyk is on the way back very soon from injury. So for me, I'm keeping my eye on Kelly Olynyk and his return to injury. Boucher has been doing a reasonable job. He's been a really decent streamer over the past few weeks, Malley. I think he's just been doing what you need him to do. It's nothing flash, but he gets out there. He's been the 106th ranked player in the last week. That's not sexy, but it's not bad. It's 106. That's a guy you would target on draft day. He's averaging 12 points. He's averaging 4.7 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 1.3 blocks, 500 from the field, and 750 from the line. I really like that in the course of the last week, and I see a role continuing to evolve for him. And this is also with Jakob Pertl playing out of his skin and no Kelly Olynyk. So there's only a short time for that. Now, Klingen's knee is down. We stash him in an IR spot. And this is the thing. I have already seen some people drop Donovan Clingan. Now, this is a guy we want to keep our eye on over the course of the season. He was playing very well. Now, his field goal percentage hurt his last game. He didn't hit him, but the big rebound count for Klingo was absolutely huge. He is going to be out for at least the next week. So let's keep our eyes on him and see what happens with owners in our league. If he's dropped and you have an IR or an IL spot, you pick him up, you place him in there temporarily, and you just ride that pony on out when he comes back. Because DeAndre Ayton wasn't playing that well. He's been injured. He's returning to the lineup. There's the Robert Williams situation. What happens there, we don't know. But we know he's going to be a later in the season target, and he's shown it. The 19 rebound game the other day, absolutely huge from him. The next guys that I've got on my list, these are all guys returning from injury. And you can look at the Reds there, Malley. We spoke about this off air. I showed you the slide, and I showed this earlier. The only guy returning from injury this week who is showing an increase in ownership dramatically is Nick Richards in Charlotte. He is up to 27% owned in Yahoo leagues, 8% owned in ESPN, and 64% of leagues on Fantrax currently. Now, with him possibly returning before Mark Williams, there's definitely very short value for him, but we don't know how many minutes Mark Williams is going to be on a restriction for. We don't know how long he's going to be healthy for. Nick Richards fills the need very well. He did start the season pretty reliably until that injury, which has shelved him for the past 4 weeks. So he's going to be coming back in. But the rest of these guys, people have given up. Max Strus, 5.45. You can see there with the gravity of the 45% ownership on Fantrax that there is reason for Yahoo and ESPN owners to perk your little ears up and your eyes up to see where Maxi Strus is. He is needed in that lineup. Yes, Cleveland is playing, but their weakness, and we saw it against that game in the Boston Celtics, they had their 3 wing defenders out. Okoro was out. Karis LeVert was out. Max Strus was out. That hurt them. Darius Garland played just gobsmackingly bad, and they still had a shot. So that's definitely one guy that we want to keep our eye on as well. Herb Jones. Missy has been a really great pickup, but Missy has been injured. He has a game time decision for the game tomorrow for Monday. But Herb Jones was the product to play the center. And with Zion Williams getting the announcement that his injury is going to take longer than initially expected, he is still the ad we want to have. Whereas Malik Monk has still continued to drop down with owners frustrated that he has not come back for the game. He's gone down to 29 and 24% in Yahoo and ESPN respectively. 8% owned on Fantrax. He is the least owned on Fantrax than the other two, which means he is definitely a waiver target for guys down there in Fantrax world. And Malley, let's wrap it up with these guys. Take us through this list for us, mate, on their ownership.
Yeah, I was just going to say before too, I really like Malik Monk because you can see that Sacramento need him. So I think that he's going to get burned as soon as he can get his legs underneath him. He's going to be good. So yeah, he was the one on the list there that stood out the most to me. Who we got here at the end?
He's good here. These are the other guys we were talking about. The Clippers boys, like Kevin Porter Jr. and Chris Dunn, with non-power being out, mate, they've been getting really good burn.
Yeah, and Chris Dunn is shooting some threes. What the hell? Never done that before. But we'll take it because he's doing it. He must have been inspired by James Harden's never afraid to let one go outside of the arc. So yeah, those guys have been playing well. Their minutes have been pretty steady. A couple of decent pickups there. We already talked about Musa, but we know what he's going to be able to do, especially until we get these other centers back. And obviously they've got a bit of power forward. A lack of depth, I guess, at the moment as well. So he's going to continue to play. I like Jalen Wells. He put up a really big game the other day, so that's probably had him leave waiver wise. It's funny because he's been playing essentially a shooting guard, and that's where he's put on ESPN. But then on Fantrax, they have him as a power forward, which go figure. I'm a little bit confused about that. And
he's a small forward over on Yahoo right now. And shout out to my mate Ken Morning Glory Jr. in the Insight Premier League. He just picked him up initially ago, and like you said, he's one of the guys who puts his last game 700 from the field, 26 points, 4 rebounds, and 6. That is some sexy lineage.
Yes, you're right, and we've talked at length over episodes upon episodes of the fact that the points are the light, the beacon to the moths, the moth to the flame type situation. That's exactly what people go for. We've got Jonathan Isaacs out here every night just putting up 2 steals, 2 blocks, which is valuable as hell. And then Jalen Wells goes out and after scoring 12 respectively for the last 5 weeks, goes out and puts up 20s, and everyone will be like, oh, here we go. And they'll grab him. So, proceed with caution.
Proceed with caution. And again, with the departure of Vince Williams Jr., there's a role for him to come in, step into in Memphis. And that's why he's a really good grab this week. And like we said, they do have that 4-game week. And Mo Wagner is another one of the guys we can add some back-to-back value during the course of the week. We'll break down the back-to-backs to finish off to remind you of those. Or just check our recap show that we do of the weekly preview. But Mo Wagner is down to 49% ownership in Fantrax, operating a bit of a vacuum there for some ownership, whereas only 16% owned in Yahoo and 5% in ESPN leagues. The other guy I just want to touch on very quickly with the Los Angeles Clippers has been Derek Jones Jr., another one of the junior boys. One of the themes this week is him. He's been playing well. He actually moved into the 79th ranked player in fantasy last week over the course of it, averaging 26 minutes a night with 12.5 points a game, 4 rebounds, an assist, not that flash, but the 1.8 steals on the 560 from the floor and the plus 900 from the free throw line. For a guy who does like to get there at 3 attempts a game, it was really good to see him out there and operating at a higher level for Derek Jones Jr. Other guys we can have with those weeks, as we said, Rui Hachimura and Cam Reddish, both in the top 120 players in fantasy over the course of the last week. We can also look to get a little bit of value over guys like Howard Haysmith from the Miami Heat this week, and even Alec Burks, who played a couple of games. So let's look at his role. He's a bit of an interesting must-watch kind of guy for me, putting on him on the radar on a Miami Heat team that's not doing that well. Guys even like Drew Smith getting in there and playing a game, going nuts on the course of the last week and doing things that we don't want to watch, whereas more Alec Burks is a tenured veteran, which fits the Miami, and that keeps it at 30. Malley, it's in the bag, baby.
Another one. Signed, sealed, delivered.
I'm yours, and so is Standard Squeeze. Big shout out to them. I've been having my 4-in-1 keep cut. I've got my delightful Sicilian blood orange cordial. It's fancy. It's fancy cordial. Look at you. Yeah, mate, it is. Yeah. It's good. It's from down in Beechworth Way. It's the Bilson's gear. I love it. But my 4-in-1 keeps it nice and chilled for the entire podcast. You can do your coffees, can hold your stubbies, can do everything. You can use promo code IFS15 for all of your gear. You rep their apparel. We've got them on most of our shows most of the time. Big shout out to Ash and all those guys. And our Patreon. Make sure you hit that up. It is cheap as chips. We've got exclusive access like Q&A offers and a whole bunch of newsletter gear on that one. Make sure you like and subscribe to All Things Insight. We'll be back very soon with more content for you. Hit the bell below for all of it. We'll see you soon, Malley.
See you, mate.
Bye, everyone.